Welcome to the AdTechGod Pod, where we speak to those driving programmatic partnerships. Today's guest is Andrew Cassin, the Senior Director of Programmatic Partnerships at Cadent. Andrew's worked at some great companies in the space, including Equativ, Connatix, Rubicon Project, and more. As a friend of the podcast and someone who I think truly brings so much positivity and authenticity to the space, I'm happy to have him with me today as a guest. Andrew, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, I'm excited. I feel like this is way past due. I feel like we've messaged for years and we're finally here. And I'm happy that you joined.
Yeah. All those days at Sunday Mass finally got me to the front of the line. So happy.
We're now, what is it today? Wednesday. This is Wednesday Mass. So today we got Wednesday Mass. We're doing a little chapel time. Andrew, you've worked at amazing companies. You've worked in ad tech a majority of your career, if not all of your career, starting at Rubicon and Connatix, Equativ, and now Cadent. But I wanted you to run through your career, how you got to where you're at today, and what that means for programmatic partnerships. So if you want to run it back, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. No. So I was fortunate enough to get an internship way back in the day at Forbes.com. So I had a mutual relationship with the head of HR over at Forbes. And so I was lucky to get an internship there the summer going into my senior year. And then after college, they had a temp to hire position working for the president of Forbes.com at the time, who was Mike Smith. And, I jumped at that opportunity as anyone would when you're trying to get a job in 2010. So I was, I got the opportunity to work at Forbes.com at a time that was kind of innovative for them because they were going from an old school, business media publisher, the lists of, richest people and things like that, to trying to become, this digitally evolved publisher. They were changing the cover of the logo. They were putting Justin Bieber on the front, so I was lucky to be there at that time. And for them, that was at a time where digital was evolving and things like programmatic were becoming at the forefront of their strategy, and RTB was, becoming an important part of the overall tech stack. And so I got the opportunity from, early on as a new graduate to learn about programmatic when nobody really knew what programmatic was. Everyone was kind of learning flying by the seat of their pants. It was really the Wild West for publishers. And so a lot of people who were doing programmatic at publishers were getting together and kind of trying to understand, what are you guys doing? What's working for you? And so, through that, I got to network, obviously, with a lot of ad tech companies. And that brought me over to Rubicon Project when they were building out their offering on the demand side, talking to brands and agencies, which had been what I was doing primarily at Forbes. So I got to be at Rubicon early days there. And right before they went public, I was there a year before they went public. And so first time being part of an ad tech company that went public, super exciting. And being part of that the demand side was huge because we were a startup within a large publisher facing organization. And so we were very nimble in how we had to build out, our solutions and strategies there and how we worked with brands and agencies around programmatic and what we were doing for them from a solution standpoint. And it was also exciting because I got to wear a lot of hats, as a startup like Rubicon, even though they were a fairly large company, I got to try a lot of things, collaborate with a lot of different departments, and everything became a learning curve for me, and which was great because I kind of was able to soak it all in. From there, I was at Rubicon Product for almost 5 years, and then I got the opportunity to go over to Connatix, which was more singularly focused on video, which was exciting me to have a more, as opposed to Rubicon that was covering video, display, and mobile. I got to go to Connatix and focus on video and help build the demand side over there. Work with a lot of great people, had a really great culture over there. And then my last 2 stints, I was at Equativ. Formerly, before they were Equativ, they were Smart Ad Server. So working at a French company trying to build their offering in the US was really exciting. And so being able to help them build that culture, as well as just their overall strategy about how to go out to market in the US, taught me a lot. I got to work with amazing people from the French office who came over to the US. And, got to be part of that rebranding to Equativ, which was really exciting because they had been known as Smart Ad Server for so long. And, they were so much more than just an ad server. And then, taking me over to Cadent, where it's been an amazing ride these last couple of years.
So it's funny because you mentioned the changes that happened at Forbes when you were there, which was right after you started 2010. You ended there a couple years later, 3 years later. And then you entered into an industry that's been constantly changing. Because if you look at the last 15 or 16 years that you've been in it, 2010, it was publishing and the way the publishing was changing. 2013 is when the iPhone in-app advertising started taking off. Videos started to scale. And then we moved into like 16, 17, where CTV started to change. And now you're at Cadent, which does a little bit of all that, right? It's like the linear business, the connected television business, and of course more. I wanted to ask you, what has been the constant for you in the last 15 years that keeps you moving forward and just like learning and adapting to all these changes?
Yeah, I think the constant has been I think the excitement, like the passion for the industry. I mean, I feel like we've had so many people on here talk about, passion and, in different phases. But I think for me, as nerdy as it may sound, I really am passionate about the industry, about ad tech, and then the companies that I work for, and promoting them and promoting them out in market, promoting them, on social media, and, just the opportunity to build things, to build, each company that I've been at, I've been able to be kind of on the ground floor or, on the early stages of the teams and building that up. And so I think that's what's always excited me and maybe it's because my dad was a contractor for like 10 million years, but building solutions, building teams, it really has motivated me, in what I do on the ad tech side. And then, being able to, joking around is I'm a big Lego guy. So building things outside of work too is part of my passion, I guess.
It's crazy to think that in 2010, which was not that long ago, but it is a long time, not calling age here, how much it's changed. How have you seen brands, agencies also adapt? Has the sale or the partnership aspect gotten any easier? Or is it because it's constantly changing, it feels like a constant evolution of education and knowledge sharing to get them to understand what the benefits are?
Yeah, I think it's changed a little bit more in the sense that brands and agencies are leaning in to their ad tech partners. I think, the changes that we've seen, when it comes to privacy regulations, when it comes to, brand safety, when it comes to AI, there's so much change happening. And so brands and agencies are leaning on their ad tech partners, whether it's SSPs, DSPs, to educate them, to help them understand, what they don't know. And, and same for us, we know that things are changing on the agency side, and we, and as partners, we look to understand how that change affects their business, from the top down and from the bottom up with, the teams that we work with.
When looking at, I guess, Cadent and their business, I know you recently announced the acquisition of ViewPlanner. What does that mean? What was the purpose of it? I know that they're primarily focused on YouTube. Cadent has done a lot of cross-linear and connected television. How do you find that filling the gap and bridging all those touch points?
Yeah, I think it was just a necessary step, in the evolution of Cadent from a linear focused company to digital, and being able to connect there's fragmentation in audiences, and being able to connect those audiences from linear to CTV, OLV, and now YouTube. It was an exciting opportunity for us. And I think we're really excited to bring that to our clients, partners.
Congrats, by the way, on that. I read about it, I think, in Ad Exchanger, and I'm like, incredible. Cool. I love that Cadent's been proactive in their acquisition strategy over the last few years that I've seen. I think it's the right path. And definitely YouTube is a massive channel. So I don't see any issue there. I think I would probably do the same.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So in a partnerships role, a lot of it, I talk a lot about relationship building. I talk a lot about the industry being small yet big at the same time. How do you feel partnerships have changed over the years? What do you feel is really your superpower when you're talking to these agencies and brands about your solution? Like, where do you really lean in?
Yeah, I think I really just lean in on, we talk so much about solution selling, and I think programmatic, has changed so much where it used to become, we talk like this set it and forget it mentality, when working on deals like, private marketplace deals and programmatic guaranteed and things like that. And, it evolved from the set it and forget it and on to the next and volume based. And now it's really become, why are we setting up this deal? What are the details behind it? It's, not just a handshake agreement and let's go. It's, we really want to understand, why are we setting up this deal, and why are we, why are we working together, and what solutions do we have that fit those needs? It really is like making sure that, what we have today can fit their needs, and what we have down the line, we want to build solutions that are aligned with where they're going as well, not just where they are today, but where they're going. Because, for us, we want to be partners long term, not just for the few deals that we just set up.
So like a big topic, and this went out on my newsletter, will be a week ago. I talk a lot about the increase in transparency requirements of supply side platforms, buyers, agencies wanting to know more, at least gaining access to it. This was a big topic last year with the whole SPO path, or the supply path optimization, cleaning up your supply chain, creating additional visibility capabilities for your buyers. Are you sensing that's happening also at Cadent? Are you finding that buyers are just becoming way more knowledgeable, way more intrigued by the data and the insights that they get?
Yeah, no, I think, it's changing. And I think what was unique about Cadent is, we've done things in such a great fashion over the last 2 years where we've been able to, because we've been so new to the SSP side of the business and SSP space and coming in there, that we wanted to do things the right way and build our supply in a clean and direct path. And, through the integrations we've done with our publishers, the partnerships we have with them, working closely with them. And then obviously working with our, on the brand and agency side, working with those centers of excellence to understand, are we complying with their standards, not just the industry standards, but, the standards that they might have when it comes to clean, well-lit, path to inventory.
Do you feel like the standards usually start with the agencies and brands and then move into like organizations, or do you think it's the other way? Because I would guess that the people holding the money are the ones who decide what's excellent and what's of quality, and then kind of the bodies that exist that monitor and set standards are next.
Yeah, and I think I think adhering to the standards of those organizations comes first, because they've been around the longest. They have they've understood the foundations of those things, and then obviously the ones holding the money decide which ones are doing it the best and doing it the right way, or doing it in the way that they want to work with them. So that's just how I see it.
So question, a little personal touch. You're a very relatable person. You have great friendships, a great relationship builder overall, and you were recently diagnosed with cancer. And I know this is a very delicate and sensitive topic, so thank you for talking about it. How have you been, and how has that changed how you look at life, how you look at your partnerships, your friendships, and of course your priorities when working with various people in the industry and outside?
Yeah, no, it's obviously changed me drastically in so many ways, and I'm doing well right now, and and going through treatment and fighting it as best as I can. And I think from a professional standpoint, it's made me truly more empathetic to people in general. I think it's because you don't know what people are going through, and I think it's made me more cautious in how I message, how I approach outreach, how I approach meetings in general, and make it I think, like you said, it's relationships, and so I don't want every meeting that I have to be a PowerPoint presentation for 30 minutes, and I want it to be. I want there to be, a little bit of chit chat. I want there to be, I want to make it personal. I want to make it familiar, so that I am seen as a partner and not just another salesperson who comes through their door and through their, their Rolodex. But, and on the personal side, it's made me intricately more like cognizant of who I allow into my life, from a personal standpoint. Like I'm trying to enhance the connections I make with each connection I make, and not, how many connections I make. It's, it really makes me, the people that I want in my life that I'm living right now for as long as I can live it, I want to enhance the people that are around me, supporting me, the new people I meet, and all of that. So yeah, but it is also making me understand so much about our industry. Is, there are so many people. Our industry is so connected and so small and familiar, but so is the amount of people who in our industry who are probably fighting the same fight and not as vocal as I am about it. So, you know, and that's why I've kind of been so vocal about it. And because I think anybody who, you know, is going through this and, you know, who are in ad tech, you know, and don't have people to connect with, you know, maybe they reach out to me, or maybe I, you know, reach out to them. So
yeah, I feel like the industry overall is pretty supportive. Not having health issues myself, but you know, very close family member did, and I remember the outreach I received, and it was like the little things too. It was just even if it was just like a text or an email that came out from coworkers saying, "Hey, we heard about this. Hope you're good. Hope the family's okay. If you need anything, let me know." That was nice enough. But then some people go, you know, way beyond that, and I thought that was also great. But what do you think are the support forums, like whether they're big or small, that really meant the most to you, especially during this kind of difficult, challenging time?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it made me, you know, it definitely made, you know, I got, when I announced it, and, you know, in a classic Andrew Cassin fashion, in a giant blog post, you know, I had reach out from people that I'd worked with for, you know, 5 years at Rubicon project. You know, people that I went to high school with, you know, a million years ago, reaching out, people that I didn't know at all, reaching out because they had someone go through it, they're going through it, whatever it might be. So, you know, I think it's been great. We have this world where, you know, I think thoughts and prayers can get a little oversaturated when it comes to things. And I think, you know, but to be, like you said, it's to be the sincerity around it was what I was very surprised about, you know, from people that maybe I didn't even have that good of a relationship with. So that, you know, that obviously felt really, really good. And it made me feel that I even though it feels isolating sometimes, and that I might be going through it alone, you know, at least there are people who, you know, I could talk to when things do get tough, you know.
I would think your support network is strong and a big part of pushing forward. I follow you on Instagram. I've seen your posts. You've picked up this very understandable addiction to Legos, because I went through a phase like that where I was like buying way too much of them, and now they just sit in boxes. But it is like unbelievably therapeutic and fun to just build stuff. And I know that you have a pretty ridiculous collection at this point.
Yeah, no, I took disability leave for a little bit, and it was a huge mental health, you know, support to getting into Legos, and therapeutic, as you said. And my backlog is about 25 boxes sitting in my living room right now that I don't know what I'm going to do with.
Andrew, with having over, you know, 15 years of experience in the space, we talked a lot about technology adapting, product rollouts, acquisitions. What advice would you give to people who are new in the industry or early on in the industry to just keep up to date with what's happening so that they can be better prepared for any changes that come?
Yeah, I think, you know, what I'm jealous about for people coming into the industry, there's obviously so many resources available to them that none of us had going up in the early wild days of programmatic. So, you know, there's the industry press, you know, there Ad Exchange, all the different websites that companies that provide certification courses, webinars, things like that. So, you know, I would say take advantage of all of that, you know, is available to you now that I wish I had flying by the seat of my pants. And then, you know, I think building, you know, I think you've talked about so many times on your pod is, you know, and I've heard from so many other amazing guests is, you know, building that kind of board of mentors, you know, is important in this industry, especially. And I wish that I had more, you know, available to me back in the day and even now today. And, you know, there's obviously so many amazing mentorship programs out there like 212 and Oh Hello, which I've been fortunate to be a part of and meet some amazing, you know, young professionals up and coming in the industry. So, yeah, I recommend that and just get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the most underutilized resource in our industry, you know, whether you think it's, you know, people think it's being used for too much personal stuff or too much negativity on it. It's still one of the, you know, most useful tools that we have to use in our industry.
It's funny because you touch up on the LinkedIn portion and the network and the board of advisors. That's something that's actually relatively new for me. Yeah, I created a meme account. Yeah, I kind of weirdly went way more popular than I thought it ever would be. But the advisor part to me is probably the most valuable thing that I got out of creating this. Being able to have dozens, if not hundreds of conversations with people per week, per month, has created such a strong network where me as the real person or me as the ATG persona has allowed me to learn so much, and just getting that guidance. Hey, what do you think of this? Oh, I think it's great. I don't think it's great. Even just the insights I gain have made me so much stronger in my confidence and knowledge that I definitely recommend that to everyone. It's talk, ask questions. Nobody thinks you're dumb. The more you can ask, the more you learn. And it just creates such an incredible wealth of knowledge just by asking the right questions to the right people.
Yeah, agreed.
Andrew, another question for you.
Yeah.
Cadent's obviously evolved over the years, both the ViewPlanner acquisition, moving from kind of a traditional linear space into streaming, into online video. But what are you in particular really excited about moving into 2026? What do you think is hot? What do you think is not? And what kind of excites you about the industry?
Yeah, I think I'm just excited about how open the industry still is. I mean, I think, especially for Cadent, we are newer to the space from an ad tech perspective. I'd say, traditionally being known as a linear company. And so our opportunity to come in and provide innovative solutions to our clients who might have never heard of us is wide open. And that's what's really exciting about that. And I think, what we bring to the table from a video perspective, from a CTV perspective, the unique things coming over from AdTherent and their amazing technology and people. It's a really exciting year next year that to work with clients and be able to talk to them about what we have. And then the industry, I think what's really exciting is that there's so much opportunity to innovate. I think innovation is one of the amazing things about ad tech, in things, whether it's privacy, whether it's AI, whatever it might be, whatever might be the next thing, CTV, it's forcing so many companies to pivot, new companies to come out of nowhere that are building unique things. And so, the unique innovation that we're doing and then, and seeing other companies do, I think is really exciting, going into next year. And I'm really excited to see what else people are building and what else Cadent has in store.
I've probably mentioned this before. I think media itself has changed a lot, but if there's one thing that hasn't changed is how much traction negativity gets in the media. So whether this was like antenna on top of your TV, or whether this is streaming, or whether this is scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, it almost feels like the negative news gets highlighted. And it's the same way in advertising or ad tech news. The top headlines are the most controversial headlines. What falls to the bottom are the good news, the big announcements, right? Like you hear about the bankrupt company. What you don't hear about is the company that is successfully kind of moving through a very changing industry today, because they tend to not get as much press. And so for me, although I think there's a lot of changes around AI, operationally, generative AI, consumption habits, LLMs, like there's so many topics that are going to change over the next 12 months. I also innately feel inside that that's okay. Majority of the companies see it, they're watching it, they're adapting to it, and they're building for it. And so although it might be a little bumpy, I still think that 2026 will be a good year for advertising and for digital overall. But if you read the headlines, it's the end of the world. And I definitely don't agree with that.
No, not at all.
Awesome. Andrew, I want to thank you and thank Cadent for having you here. Since this is coming out a week before Christmas, and you said you were Catholic, Merry Christmas. I wish you and your family a great holiday, and I hope you get some time off with family.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew.